I've got to read the announcement into the record anyway. So good evening and welcome to the June 1st meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. I will read the governor's order into the record. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. Any person interested or wishing to participate in the public comment portions of this hearing from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device, please click this URL to join and enter the meeting ID at the time noted. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191 or live streamed online at westboroughtv.org. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, I just want to read the agenda, and we have a continued public hearing for 4400 Computer Drive, a continued public hearing for 1400 West Park Drive, a discussion and possible approval for site plan review requirements relative to outdoor seating for restaurants, a discussion of future planning board meeting format, and the master plan update. Hazel, thanks for, I'm glad you joined. I was worried about you. So, but since that order takes 10 minutes to read, we have plenty of time to get you online.
Failure to pay attention to the time.
Well, I think you're probably the smart one to skip that and join late, so you don't have to listen to me rattle that thing off.
But I can hear you so much better with your earphones on.
Well, so Hazel, this will just support any argument to go back to live meetings, so if we don't have to read that anymore. So, all right, let's start with the continued public hearing for the site plan review application at 4400 Computer Drive. Jim, we had some outstanding issues, Jim Robbins. Why don't you summarize those for the board, and then
yes, thank you.
Discuss our next steps.
I see Bob Buckley has joined us. So Bob, I noticed you just joined us. We just reopened the public hearing, and the chairman asked me to summarize where we were at. Since our last meeting and the continuance that Bob requested last week, Bob issued me a draft decision for our permit, which I forwarded to the members of the board and to the usual staff that review special permits or site plan review decisions. I know there'll be comments on those. I know that no one has had an opportunity to comment yet, but there will be comments forthcoming. And I sent Bob an email not too long ago, within the hour, a comment that I had on his proposal. But Bob may have some information that he wants to talk about. Then I know the board wanted to talk about a site visit out there next Tuesday evening.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Chairman, for the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein. I have with me off camera Christine Hung from my office, who's been working with me on this transaction. She does the work, the FaceTime. I should be the other way around, I think. But that being said, we just this afternoon responded to the tie and bond comment letter that was sent to the board on the peer review. Obviously, we're fully appreciative of the fact that the board has not had a chance to review it, nor has tie and bond. So we just wanted to advise you of that. So hopefully by the next meeting, we will have their comments back, and we're hoping for a clean letter in return. We have retained a sound engineer to consider various proposals or alternatives for the sound barrier. We've asked them to look at the intended effect of that sound barrier in terms of what we're trying to control, the location, and a wide assortment of possible materials based upon the targeted mitigation which we're trying to achieve. We would hopefully, in short order, have a recommendation from the sound engineering firm. Ostergaard is their name. That would be able to provide us with information with respect to the sound mitigation. I did speak to Jim prior to your meeting last week about arranging for a site visit, and I think, Jim, you had said that you were going to discuss it at the meeting, and that one of the target dates was the 8th, June 8th. But I could coordinate that with Jim, and we'll have someone available. We'll just coordinate the location of where we will all meet and what we will see. There will be someone from the development team there to answer any questions and discuss the location of the proposed sound and visual barriers that are shown on the plans. We have, since we had a meeting, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, with Jim and various members of the town's staff, fire, public safety, director of community development, engineering, Jim, to talk about potential studies that the town is desirous to have us make a contribution for. And we've provided a draft condition to that effect. One of them would be a fine tuning of your master plan or I call it an infrastructure assessment for that quadrant of the town. The other would be a contribution to the ongoing study for sewer and water through the engineering department. And the final was a public safety, what they call a programmatic study, as requested by the public safety department, police and fire. We have contacted the recommended consultant for the public safety and received back a proposal which we've agreed to fund that cost. It's in the draft decision. I think it was approximately $25,000. And that will, the scope was set forth based upon a meeting between, I believe, the fire department and the consultant, and they submitted a written proposal which we've agreed to fund. That is it. I don't think there's a lot to discuss pending receipt of the peer review comments and maybe coordination of the site plan, but we wanted to give the board an update. I recognize you have a full agenda this evening. It's a nice evening finally. So.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate the update. I want to just turn to the board for any questions, any follow-up from previous discussions. But before we do that, I did want to nail down a date for that site visit, just so that any public watching, I think it's important for us to get it out as quickly as possible. So I thought I heard you say that you would be able to accommodate a site visit on the 8th?
Yeah, that's what we initially discussed with Jim.
Right. Okay, and what time would that be?
We'll make someone available. My sense is to maximize return on getting people out there, perhaps after 5 o'clock, if people are working.
Yeah, I was thinking more like 7:30, 8 o'clock.
In the evening?
Yeah, no, I think it's important to get a sense of at least of the light, the light impact on the neighbors. So
we'll adjust based upon the board schedule. That's fine. Yep.
Mark, it's not going to be a formal meeting, though, is it? Didn't we decide that?
No, I think what we were going to do is post a site visit for the public and have 2 members attend that, so that we don't have to post it as a public meeting, and we don't have to take minutes, and we just have an opportunity for the the public to see that mitigation, that sound mitigation and light mitigation that they're proposing, and for the board, 2 members of the board to participate in that, and the rest of the board will go by there sometime next week to view that themselves. So I'm hoping we have a couple of volunteers to go on Tuesday at let's say 7:30. I'd like to give people a chance to get home if they're back to commuting. So any volunteers want to go on Tuesday? Okay, I'll volunteer.
Yeah,
Jim Robbins, I see. Yeah,
I can go.
Pete, you can do it.
Yep.
Okay.
Tuesday, next Tuesday at 7:30. So
Right. Let me just double check. Well, I'll
Mr.
make
Chairman,
myself available for that. Yeah.
I'll coordinate with
Bob?
Jim at a rendezvous location, and we'll set that up.
Okay, and Jim, you'll get it posted on the planning board website so that anyone interested will have the details.
Sure. And
Um,
also, I noticed that there's several people from the neighborhood, the abutting residential neighborhood with us this evening. Please tell your neighbors that that's next Tuesday, a week from tonight, at 7:30 p.m. at 4400 Computer Drive. Somewhere in the parking lot, you'll see us behind the building.
Okay. All right. So back to the board. Does anyone have questions on what Bob presented this evening? Any follow-up issues that they want further explore?
Mark, it's Tim, just a question on logistics there. Does that mean that more than 2 board members can attend the work session? We'll have a quorum and it becomes formal.
Yeah, on Tuesday, you cannot go Tuesday at 7:30,
Gotcha.
Tim, unless
Okay.
if you really want to go that night, I'll step aside. and
No,
let
I
you.
just wanted to clarify. That's all. The
Okay.
question I would have for Mr. Buckley is if at that time they're going to have these mock-ups, particularly for the light curtain.
I think what we will have is something that will show the height and the location so that you'll see, I mean, the materials haven't been chosen yet.
Yeah, no, but just the physical height. will
Yeah,
be illustrated.
we'll have something that will demonstrate in measurements what the average height of a vehicle headlights are, and hopefully by then we'll have some information from our consultant as to the noise we're trying to mitigate and what the best material is for that. So we're looking at anything from concrete to, there's a whole list of things, and then we'll be in a position hopefully to discuss it more rationally.
Terrific. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board for Mr. Buckley? Bob, I did have one more thing, and I've been pushing this right along. I've yet to hear an objection from a neighbor or a rational explanation from the applicant as to their objection to providing the Westborough Land Trust an easement for the charm bracelet. And I'm not sure if you're ready to talk about that tonight or if you want to get back to me at our next meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've had preliminary discussions on that. There are some security issues that in basically where people would park, how they would access it, and there was not a lot of receptivity on the part of the user. That being said, we've had serious discussions of making a meaningful financial contribution to the town to allow the town to use those funds to put into effect a public improvement that would facilitate that objective. So at the next meeting, we'll be in a position to discuss that in greater detail. But we have had some preliminary discussions.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your follow-up on that, and we'll explore that more at the next meeting.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a public hearing, but I do want to go to the departments first to see if anyone, Lisa or Jim, has any questions. And I see Fred is on as well. If anyone from the town departments have questions, or Patrick, we have one of the selectmen is with us tonight if you have any questions.
Mark,
Just raise your hand. Lisa, go ahead.
Mark, we have no questions. We received the comment letter today, so we'll be looking at it this week with time bond.
Mark, it's Fred Leonardo. I don't have anything at this point. Bob touched on the points that I was looking at, so I'll just review that with Jim.
Okay, great. All right. If I don't hear anyone else, so this is a public hearing, and I would ask that if anyone in the public has a question, to use the raise your hand feature, which if you click on down at the bottom of your screen under participants, I believe you should be able to raise your hand.
Patrick Welsh has a question.
Hey, Mark,
Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, just a statement. I would love to join you all on Tuesday night.
Hey, Patrick, I'm so sorry. Can you state your name and address? I think you have to do that for the record.
Yep. Patrick Welch, 15 Chauncey Circle, select board member.
Okay.
Sure. So I was just going to say, I would love to join everybody down there on Tuesday night to see this. It sounds like a great opportunity to better understand what's happening. Unfortunately, it is, I believe we have a select board meeting at the same time, so I won't be able to make it, but I look forward to hearing the report back from those that do attend. So thank you.
Yeah, so Patrick, I think that along with the rest of the board that's not going on Tuesday, you might, if you want to go by there later in the week, to at least get a sense of where these sound barriers and light barriers are going to be and the height. You should be able to get over there, and if you have questions about it afterwards, just let us know. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any questions from the public at this point? I don't see anyone with their hand raised. I don't want to miss anyone. But I think that's it for now.
Mr. Chairman, may I suggest that we'll put together a small packet showing the location of a colored location where the sound barrier would be going, another screening, and maybe also include the perspective that we showed at the last meeting, so someone could have a reference from a visual standpoint if they're standing on the abutting properties, what they would see, so that hopefully orient individuals who have curiosity. We'll get that to Jim.
Jim, if you could actually have hard copies of that at the planning board counter in case anybody wants to stop by. And I don't know if it'll be something that comes in PDF format or electronic format, digital format. We could put a link on the planning board website if that's not too difficult. So with Kristen back tomorrow, we should be able to figure it out. Jim Ball, go ahead.
Quick comment on that, Bob. I was just up there this morning. I'm wondering, because right now the old building's there, could that plan or whatever you're talking about maybe reference the back of the building or reference the side of the lot that goes down to the truck lot or something that's there now versus, we're looking at the plan of what's going to be, right. If there's a couple of points of reference that might make it obvious for those of us that go up after the fact. I mean, if the mock-up's there, that's going to be clear. So maybe that's sufficient.
That's a good point. We'll speak to the civil engineer tomorrow to see if we can get some points of reference. It's an excellent point.
Thank you.
We may be able to screen the building so that on the site plan, you'll see where the footprint of the existing building is relative to where we're proposing.
Okay. If there's no other questions, then I think we should move on to the next agenda item. So we're going to continue this to the next meeting.
You need a motion on that?
Yes, please, Hazel, if you're ready.
Okay. I move that the planning board continue the public hearing of 4400 Computer Drive to June 15th at 6:30.
I'll make a second of that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Hazel Nurse.
Yes, to approve.
Jim Ball.
Yes, Mark.
Peter Bouchard.
Yes.
Tim Kaler.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor. Continuing this to June 15th.
Thank you for your time and consideration, and everyone stay healthy, please.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Bob.
So our next agenda item is a continued public hearing for the site plan review application at 1400 West Park Drive. We have a letter from the applicant requesting a continuance, and I just need to find it so that I can read that into the record. Sorry, my computer's going very slow.
I can read that for you, Mark, if you wish.
Yeah, could you, Jim? I'm sorry about that.
Okay, this is a letter dated January 1, 2021 from Amanda Keefe, who is the senior project manager for 1400 West Park Drive. She represents Redgate.
You mean
Jim,
January 1st?
I'm sorry?
You said January 1st.
I meant
You
June
meant June
1st. If I
1st.
said January, my apologies. June 1st, 2021. On behalf of Mass General Brigham, applicant for the site plan review for property located at 1400 West Park Drive, we hereby request a continuance for the planning board's public hearing to allow for additional review of said application to a new date of June 15th, 2021. Thank you for your consideration. We look forward to continuing our work and review with the town.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, do we have a motion ready? Anyone?
Yeah, I've got it. I move that the planning board grant the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for 1400 West Park Drive to June 15th at 6:30.
And I'll
Second.
second that motion.
I think I heard Tim second, so we'll give him the second. And any discussion? All those in favor, then we'll do another roll call vote. Tim Kaler,
Yes, Mark.
Peter Bouchard,
Yes, Mark.
Jim Ball,
Yes.
Hazel Nurse,
Yes,
and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 to continue this meeting or this public hearing to the 15th. The next item on the agenda was a discussion and possible approval for site plan review requirements relative to outdoor seating for restaurants. I don't think there's much of a discussion here, but Jim Robbins, I'll let you kind of summarize this issue again and where we're at on this as far as the next steps. Go ahead.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, at our last meeting, we began discussing this item with Economic Development Director Fred Leonardo. As a result of the governor's executive order tended to expire on June 15th, we were trying to make preparations for a process to allow the 9 restaurants that currently do outdoor food service to continue beyond that time. And as you know, last week, the governor filed legislation to extend that executive order, allowing outdoor food service through November 29th of this year. That legislation has not been considered and voted on. Hopefully before June 15th, we'll know, but our next meeting is June 15th. If the legislation doesn't pass by that day, we'll need to begin preparations for a public process for site plan for review for each of those businesses to allow them to continue through the month of November. So I don't have anything additional to that, but Fred is on the call in case he wants to add anything.
Sure, thanks, Jim. So the only thing I would add to that, my understanding is the ABCC is actually pushing businesses that are contemplating outdoor seating past that November deadline. So for instance, next year and the year on. So that's something else the board may have to consider is and we've gotten some indication that some of the restaurants may want to continue this past this November deadline, should that pass. The question will become from the board, are we going to insist on the same things that we've routinely insisted on a site plan? Namely, do they have to pay for a professional engineer to go out there and give you a professional plan, blah, blah, blah. So that'll be kind of the next conversation as an extension of this. And I don't know what the best answer to that is, but I'll be looking for guidance certainly from this board on what they will be anticipating.
Okay, but that wouldn't be till at least November.
Well, so yes and no, Mark. The point being that ABCC is giving direction, and I got this through through Karen, who hosts this through the Select Board's office, is that the ABCC is actually pushing for businesses to make decisions now for future uses. Now, whether that'll come to fruition, who knows? Because they're anticipating they're going to get inundated with these requests too. So they're, Karen's getting a push that they're saying they'd rather the businesses actually start thinking and physically applying for these permits on a more permanent basis. I don't know how that's going to pan out. I don't know if the businesses are really going to care past this November, because they're just trying to get through this cycle. So I don't know that we're actually going to get businesses that are going to say, yes, I want to plan for the future now. But, those conversations may be had. So just so you're aware, I'll be following up with Economic Development Coordinator to make sure that we have conversations with the restaurants that have it now, and to encourage them, if they want to go past this year, to at least start thinking about that, if not already applying for those processes.
Fred, if you had any feedback from other towns on this?
I have not, to be honest with you, Hazel. I haven't reached out to them, nor have I really gotten any feedback on them, how they're handling it or what they're doing.
Okay, just a question.
Sure.
Question. Any other questions for Fred or Jim on this? I don't think there's much tonight, but on the 15th, we're going to have to, possibly make a decision on this.
Well,
depending on what the governor says.
Yeah, and I think the intent was because there's other things tied into this legislation, open meetings, things like that. So I think that they're pushing, generally the Baker's office is pushing to have this heard fairly quickly. So we're hoping to get a decision in the next week or so, but.
All right.
I just had a question for Fred.
Go ahead.
Sort of, it'd be just an opinion, Fred, at this point. I think when we discussed this last, the perspective was that Jim was going to write a very kind of tightly worded exception for the remainder of this year based on the precedent. And in fact, ensure that we're not establishing precedent, by whatever action we might take should the governor's law, order not be approved. Mm-hmm. My question of you tonight is, I'm getting the sense that in fairness to the businesses, we should also have at least some guidance ready for them should they be seeking permanent kind of structures in those areas, about what the standard would be to apply for that and by what dates.
Well, so that's a great question, Tim. I wouldn't expect you to be able to comment on it tonight, but I think that's a fair point that I may be looking for guidance in the future to give feedback to the businesses to what the expectations will be for a site plan should they come that way. So until we kind of get through the process, I wouldn't even begin to have you express any kind of opinion tonight. But yes, I think your assessment's correct that in the future, I may be asking for that guidance so that we can tell the prospective restaurants that, the board is going to be looking for a formal engineering plan or whatever. I mean, I'm not looking for an answer tonight, but that may be a conversation to be had in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right. Patrick, did you have another question? I see your hand is still up, but I don't know if that was from before.
Yes. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board. So again, Patrick Welch, 15 Chauncey Circle. I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board that the select board has actually sent a letter to our state representatives. I'm not sure if you're all aware of that. Basically recommending or letting them know that we support the extension of restaurants being able to have those open areas. If you'd like, I can certainly read that letter for this board to hear if that helps.
Well, I think the sentiment is really what I'm concerned with. I think we're all supportive of that. But if anybody on the board wants to hear the language and speak up.
Not necessary.
Okay, great. All right, any other questions or comments for Fred or Jim on this issue? Okay, I see we had somebody join the meeting, and I just Kincaid, I don't know if you're listening, but I just wanted to make you aware that we've already continued the public hearing to June 15th on the 4400 Computer Drive. And we do have a site plan visit scheduled for Tuesday night that will be open to the public at 7:30 to see the sound and light mitigation proposal. So I didn't want you hanging out waiting for that, if that's what you're here for.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Sure, Ken. Have a good night.
Okay.
All right, so I think that's all the questions on the public dining issue, the outdoor seating issue. So let's move on to a discussion of the future planning board meeting format. We had at our last meeting, we had discussed going back to traditional in-person meeting in the near future. I know that the Board of Selectmen are considering a hybrid approach where certain, where individuals could choose to either attend in person or attend via digital means, Zoom, whatever platform is being used. I don't know that the technology or the process has been worked out for that yet. And I also know that the governor's legislation is exploring, more permanent changes to the open meeting law that would allow for that. So I'm just not sure that whether we, how the board wants to proceed with that. And I'd like to, open discussion for that. Tim Kaler, I know you had stated
I would,
an opinion to it.
Not to put Patrick on the spot, but my understanding, because our meetings were concurrent last week, I actually had a discussion about this with my neighbor, Karen Henderson, who, as you know, is head of Westborough TV, and we were just talking about community participation. I'll make a comment on that in a moment. But my understanding is that the select board actually took some action to extend, rather than me speculate. Patrick, did you take any action with regard to your meeting format?
So the select board is planning on meeting. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. Can you hear me okay?
Me too. Yeah, I'm not sure. Who is that? Okay, go ahead.
I'll give it a try again. So yes, we are going to be meeting in person next week. That is our plan. The board is looking into, with Karen's help, what the opportunity is for us to have a hybrid, whether it is the participants that are presenting to the board, or whether or not, as Mark was outlining, the state and the governor allow in the future for a hybrid for members of the boards to be remote as well. That's still being, that'll be a decision by the state. So at this point, we are planning on meeting in person, and we're looking to afford the opportunity. We're hopeful that we can afford the opportunity to those that need to be remote. Those people, I see some of these presenters who are coming from out of state, for example. We'd love to be a little bit more flexible with them and their ability to present remotely. So no word on that yet, but I think we're all in kind of the same boat in regards to that.
So you'd not taken a position then, or the proposal isn't that the remote participation would be allowed by select board members?
No, we can't, because that actually is, my understanding is that is actually would require an open meeting law change, which I think is what Mark is referring to.
Okay.
I think there's a possibility where we could have presenters be remote without being in violation. But again, I think that's something we're still kind of trying to figure out and understand.
Okay.
So actually, I think the current open meeting law allows for members of the select board or members of the planning board to attend remotely. We've certainly done that in the past. It's the applicants and members of the public wishing to speak that would normally attend in person and might, some of the Zoom or other hybrid option might afford them a different, another opportunity to attend.
Mark, I think maybe there's a limit though on the amount of times they can do that. I mean, I don't think that board members, for example, can always attend remotely. I thought there was something that, the person, it had to be a real reason. In other words, it couldn't be because you're sitting at home and you decide you want to attend. It's because you were, out of the country or, out of the state or something like that.
Yeah, and I do know that we have to have a quorum of in-person members. So, you can't have all 5 members, remote and make the public and the applicant show up in person. But I agree that there has to be extenuating circumstances for a member to attend remotely. Again, until we work out the details of this hybrid model, I'd prefer to just go back to a traditional in-person meeting starting on the 15th.
I agree with you.
I'm excited to do that, but I certainly would like to explore options that would make it easier for people to attend. Because anything that we can do to make it easier for people to attend would encourage participation in my eyes.
Yeah, I just had one comment about this, and I feel very strongly that I'd like us to go back to the way we did it before. One of the things I find as a planning board member is that having the participants, either the public or presenters, appear in person makes a great deal of difference to me, because it's the body language that I find very important when I'm watching a presenter or I'm watching a member of the public appear before the board. And almost 50% of a presentation to me is being able to physically see the person that I'm dealing with. And so I really feel very strongly that I would like to go back to people appearing in person. If there's a possibility that there is some way that we can do a remote when there are extenuating circumstances, well, that would be all right. But when we've done this before, if a person did not want to attend, they could always find someone else to step in their place and do it. And I just think that's very important to be able to actually see the applicant and to see members of the public who are interested in making comments on things appear before us personally. So I'd like to go back to the old format.
So Mark, if I could make a comment, I wrote to you, and Hazel, I don't have the benefit of having met in the old format, so I really don't have a basis for comparison. But I was interested in the question raised of just about public participation and public engagement overall. And the first point was really in talking to Karen, her perception is that participation by the Westborough public has gone up quite a bit with Zoom meetings. Now, I wouldn't be one to argue that the circumstances of COVID are very unusual, but and they cannot measure Westborough TV, Nielsen ratings. There is no data provided on the number of viewers on Westborough TV. However, the Zoom format of recording the meetings that they've moved to allows them to simulcast on YouTube TV, where they can count members of the public. And, you guys can speak to Karen. It was her feeling quite strongly that there's been a lot more involvement in the meetings of the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Board of Health, as one might expect. So I don't think that the notion of public participation would be extended by only allowing in-person meetings. And before we broadcast the meetings so people are able to observe, I think your point was that somebody wanting to ask a question or petition the board would need to meet in person. So I'm just interested in more access to the public. And so I guess I'm advocating for something that's not in law now, and I wouldn't want to do anything that isn't lawful. So this is maybe more wish fulfillment, but I believe a hybrid model, particularly for the work of the planning board, is important. So participation is a general comment. There were 2 others. One thing I've been impressed by in my meetings so far over the past year is the number of experts that our applicants bring to the meetings, the number of different people, traffic engineering. And I often see, they're in Duxbury, they're in Medford, they're all over the state. And I think it's terrific to have more experts, that the applicant has the ability to bring people. I understand they can drive to Westborough and appear in person. I think that as a practical matter, professional people with families coming to evening meetings, that's an issue of cost for the applicant to pay people to arrive, and issue of convenience. So I think by not hearing from perhaps the primary engineer or the other people that are involved in the work product, our decision making is compromised. So I like the idea that if some members of the applicants group wanted to join in by Zoom to comment on an aspect of the plan, that to me is a net positive. The other thing is very personal. It's just sight and hearing, that I've found the ability to see plans on Zoom much better than planning board or select board meetings that I've attended in the public rooms, where you're looking at detailed drawings on an LCD projector. So even if we come back to in-person meeting, I'm hoping that we can see projection on our PCs, that I'm able to zoom in on different aspects of the plan. So I've found that, as well as the ability to control volume so that I can hear the speakers. Everybody seems to have a different microphone and level of volume, and I can attenuate that on my end. And then the last point was just a practical one, post-COVID, in the short run, that there's considerable business before the board, and the flexibility that's afforded to us to participate legally through Zoom, to me, ensures that we can schedule, continue and or reschedule hearings without needing to adjust to the vacation schedules of the board or other travel commitments that we would need to be in person. But I also understand that we need a quorum. So I just wanted to make those points. It sounds like nothing will be state action.
Yeah, well, Tim, I think those are great points. I do think the issue really is we need probably the Board of Selectmen to give us leadership on this, as far as creating a hybrid solution that will A, be legal, and B, will work for hopefully all the boards in town as well as the public. So, I'm not sure we're ready to decide on a solution. So for now, I'd like to push us back, to go back to in-person meetings starting on the 15th. I personally prefer that to the Zoom. I don't have to wear these stupid headphones. So, but I just wanted to see.
Yeah, I want to be clear, Mark, too. I was not even suggesting we not return to in-person meetings. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that there is a legal Zoom option that allows participants and board members, potentially in a quorum situation, to join via Zoom, and that the town.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that, Tim. I wasn't.
Record.
I wasn't suggesting that you
Zoom. I think the meetings being recorded on Zoom and posted locally also allow us to look at minutes. I know I've gone back to trying to find out where the Board of Selectmen were deliberating on that. So I just want to be clear. I'm not speaking in opposition to in-person meetings.
Yeah, Tim, I wasn't under that impression. We do still have the option of sticking with Zoom meetings, for I think through the end of August, through the end of the governor's order. But I would like to resume in-person meetings sooner, and I think Patrick is our liaison to the Board of Selectmen, and maybe we can impose upon him to give us an update once the Board of Selectmen have established an alternative method and established that the technology is there, and then the board can have a much better discussion about what our options might be, and hopefully come to some consensus or agreement on how to proceed with a progressive model of meetings. Okay.
And as you say, it's going to be meeting. They're going all personal. They're going back to the
board,
the ZBA.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, they're going back to their old format.
Peter and Jim, you've been pretty, oh, Hazel, go ahead, finish your
I was
thought.
just going to say, Mark Crothers has his hand up. I don't know whether that was an old thing or.
Mark Veralt at Caruth Capital. Yeah, I was going to ask Peter and Jim to give us their thoughts, and then Mark, I'll give you a chance as well. But Peter, do you
Go
have any
ahead.
thoughts on this? Yeah.
I do. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, so I think it's, I think we should, in the, down the road, look for hybrid options, just, to give people some, convenience. But I'm looking forward to actually going back in person just because I'm new to this all. I want to get to know you guys more. So I think creating a relationship with you guys, it's a little easier to do in person.
Great.
I'm conflicted because I think a lot of the points that Tim made are really important. I think about some of our presenters that are here, and we're in a meeting still at 10 o'clock at night. While that doesn't happen as often as it used to sometimes, and then they've got to get home to their families, I do think that the ability for them to come in remotely is very intriguing. Yet I also appreciate Hazel's point around seeing people up close and personal. So I got to think about that. I feel pretty strongly that some type of hybrid version, and assuming we actually have technology that we can do it well, obviously we've allowed, some of us, mostly me, to be remote in a bit of a haphazard fashion. And so it's certainly the technology is there to do this well, and I hope we can. So I have to think about it more, but my sense is some kind of hybrid with clear rules and restrictions. And particularly around the idea, if that is what brings more public participation to these things, I think that's really important to consider to some degree. So maybe it's the presenters are there, but public can comment on Zoom. I don't know. I think this requires a lot of thought.
Okay. Mark Veralt, did you have some comments?
Yes, I'd like to weigh in on having it be a hybrid. Jim had a lot of good points. The cost. Sometimes we can have the person who actually did the work maybe has a conflict, and they're able to present the information rather than having a substitute person show up. It's been really nice, particularly with the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, to be able to pull up documents on the fly. So, we don't have to wait a month to come back and show something when someone can just pull it up on their file and everybody sees it and ask questions. And the other thing that's really tough is I've had times where the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, and the Selectmen are all in the same evening at the same time. And believe it or not, I've been able to use my desktop and 2 laptops and kind of gone back and forth. And that was a luxury that I really enjoyed. I don't know if the town thought about maybe not having all the boards meeting at the same evening. I'm sure that's come up with others before. And also, when we have something before the board, I realize that there's a quorum, but it's also important to have some continuity. So if a board member's missing here and a board member's missing there, and all of a sudden you really don't have all the board participating throughout, particularly a long project. So there's continuity as far as voting and participation that you probably wouldn't have if it was 100% in person. Personally, I work in Westborough. Almost every meeting I've done from my office. Tonight's an exception. But, we have a lot of consultants. Our traffic consultant is in Andover. It's been nice to have them be able to present and answer questions remotely.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. So, Jim Robbins, you've been quiet on this. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, whatever format you choose, I'm going to be here anyway. So I'm going to go with whatever you guys choose. I think there's benefits to being able to allow out-of-state engineers or architects to present. I also think that being able to have access to your electronic files when something is asked for that you weren't anticipating. For example, you might come prepared to make a presentation on the information that was in front of the board that evening, but you needed some background information from a previous meeting that you didn't bring with you physically. If you have it electronically, you can show it. So I think that that's a benefit. I do also think, however, on the other side, that being in person definitely has its benefits, particularly for the public. I think the public feels more heard when they see their elected officials in the same room in front of them. And I think also it gives them an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant after their presentation is over. I've often seen applicants and public out in the hall discussing the presentation after the agenda item is over. I'm not saying that can't exist electronically. Certainly if you exchange emails or phone numbers, you can. But I do see that additional interaction occurring with live meetings. But again, I'll go either way. I think a hybrid has its advantages.
Okay. All right. So I guess my issue here is I really only see two viable options for us at this point until a hybrid model is, tested and considered reliable and legal and all, whatever else it needs to pass. We really only have two options. We continue with Zoom meetings the way we have over the last year, or we return to in-person meetings. And my preference, and I will make a motion to that effect, motion that we return to in-person meetings starting June 15th.
Second.
Okay, Hazel seconded. Any discussion?
I'm sorry. One point of information, just so you know, you don't have a luxury of going any other way at this time until the technology is sorted out. As Patrick mentioned earlier, the selectmen are investigating that. So if you choose to go back to in-person now, that's your only option until the technology is worked out.
Right. I think that's, really, even if we wanted to continue with Zoom, it would expire in August anyway. But I think, the motion is to go forward with in-person meetings starting on the 15th. And then if some other solution presents itself, we can discuss it at that time. Any discussion for the motion, Peter? Go ahead.
Yeah, Mark, my thinking is, maybe we, I don't know if everyone's going to be able to attend on the 15th. If we decide to do this right now, I think it might make sense to, delay it to the beginning of next month for the second meetings to, give every party, opportunity. But, I can attend the 15th and I can make that work. But I think I would say the following meeting is the one we should go in person.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think we ought to go. That Board of Selectmen's going this week, and I don't think we ought to delay.
And I think 2 weeks is a lot of notice. I understand your point though, Peter. I'd like to continue though on the 15th with an open meeting or with an in-person meeting. Any further discussion of the motion? Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor of returning to in-person meetings on June 15th. Jim Ball?
Yes.
Okay, Peter Bouchard?
Yes.
Tim Kaler?
Yes.
Hazel?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor. So we will have to get dressed up on the 15th, I guess. All right.
Oh, you didn't say that.
Yeah,
I want you need to clarify the motion.
all right. Well, you'll have to get a haircut. So
Yeah.
no, just kidding.
I'm way overdue, I can promise you.
All right. So the last item on the agenda is master plan update. And Jim Robbins, I'll ask you to give that.
Thank you. As you know, the implementation matrices have been all turned into the consultant VHB. They are in the midst of writing the formal document. We should have that in a couple weeks. That will be distributed to the planning board and to the advisory committee for their review, after which time it'll be distributed to the general town departments for 2 weeks review, then back to the consultants, and then to be presented to the planning board by the consultants for your acceptance. So end of June, July, you'll have a plan.
Any questions? All right. Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, would it be appropriate for, the update of the master plan to come to the select board as an update to the select board, just so we're aware of, what work has been done and again, an update on the plan as that's coming out. I think that would be very helpful.
I'm sure it will be. Your town manager is on the advisory committee.
Okay.
Yeah, I think too, if possible, Jim, could you include an update on that in your, I think you do bi-weekly updates to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
Let's check in with the leadership of the Master Plan Committee and see if they would be amenable to you including an update on the master plan in that bi-weekly update to the Board of Selectmen.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yes,
I
happy to
have to get used to that select board term, Mark.
It'll take a while.
I am doing my very best. Yes. All right. Any other business, Jim Robbins? Anything else that we haven't discussed?
No, your minutes from your previous meeting will come to you at the next meeting. As you know, Kristen is away today, but she will be back at our next meeting. So in the interim, you'll receive minutes from last week's meeting as well as this week's meeting, tonight's meeting.
So I meant to announce this at the beginning of the meeting, but I just wanted to remind anybody watching or anybody here that Saturday is graduation, and there will be multiple street closures. So if you have questions on that, I think that starts at 10 in the morning and should be pretty disruptive to normal traffic patterns. So just be aware of that and spread the word that Saturday morning for a couple of hours, there'll be some street closures in town, Main Street through the Rotary, I believe. Okay.
Is that at the school, Mark?
I believe it starts at Hastings and goes to the high school, but I'd have to check.
Yeah, no, they do.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So, and if anybody wants to decorate or, stand out with signs and cheer on the graduating seniors, please pass the word that this is a way to support that class, of which my son is a member. So it would, it's a pretty special day.
Congratulations, Mark. Now comes college.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be the guy crying. So anyway, I don't know if that's a graduation or when I get the bill, I guess. So
That's when you'll be crying.
Either way, I'll be crying. So anyway, it's a pretty emotional day for me. So I'm excited. Anyway, I don't mean to get into personal stuff. I just wanted to get the word out about the street closures because I do think that is going to be disruptive for a lot of people, and even though it's only for a short amount of time. Okay. Anything else that I'm forgetting? Okay, I will make a motion then to adjourn.
Second that.
Second.
I think Hazel got that in, and all those in favor: Tim Kaler,
Yes, Mark.
Peter Bouchard,
Yes.
Hazel,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes, Mark.
and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 to adjourn. We'll see you in person on the 15th. Great.
That's great.